Hey, this is Allie Edwards, and in this video I am showing you how I put together November in my Project Life album for 2019. Playing a little bit of catch up here. As you can see, we are already into 2020, but just going back and taking care of November and December. First up for me, a couple things going on. I've got a lot of 3x3s that I've already punched out, not punched, but cropped there, 3x3. And I paired those with a big 9x12 photo of Simon sleeping on the couch. And then the other thing I just did was I went ahead, I used a graphics 12x12 plastic sheet because I want to have an insert in this one for that leaf there. So I'll link the graphics plastic sheets below. They come in a variety of sizes. 12x12 obviously is easy to cut down, and then you can make your own transparencies, and you can put other things on them. I don't know if you can print on these. They're a little bit thicker than probably a printable transparency, but cool for adding things on top. So I went ahead, stuck all my photos in there, and thought a little bit about what do I want to add. Do I want to add something on here? In a lot of the past months this year, I have added something to each of the photos, some sort of journaling prompt or something. So this time I decided to leave them alone, and you're going to see quite a few less words on this spread, which I'm totally fine with, especially since last month, October was super word heavy. So I'm happy with having a balance. Products I'm using in this one mainly include the November Stories by the Month that came out last year. I think I'm looking through October there at the same time. I did cut out a heart that says November Joys, and I'm going to adhere that to the outside of the page protector, which is always something that's an option. I think a lot of times we're like, oh, page protector, everything has to go inside, but things can also go outside of the page protector, and that's one of the, I think, things that keeps coming up for me a lot this year as I'm kind of figuring out what do I want to do. In this case, this is where I'm looking and I'm like thinking, oh, maybe I'll stamp on all of these. So there's a thankful for this stamp that was included in the November Stories by the Month kit. And I started that process and I actually stamped on the second one. And then I was like, it's not really what I want to do. So when I came back to this project, I had worked some of it in the middle of January. When I came back to it today, I decided I didn't want to stamp those. I'm going ahead. I just used the power punch to punch the holes in the transparencies that it can fit into the album. And then I needed to figure out how is I going to attach that leaf on there. The leaf was from our Thanksgiving. My sister-in-law had leaves for everybody to write on with the metal colored Sharpies there, which was super fun. So I went ahead and just used a brad to attach that. I thought about using a long reach stapler, but then I couldn't find the one I have. So a brad worked just fine. The next thing that I pulled out was, in an effort to use my stuff, what I decided to do was take these fun Cork outlined leaf stickers that we have offered at some point in the past, and I'm going to use almost the whole sheet. So what I decided to do was do the front and the back of this transparency. These stickers were cool because they had two of each design, so that made it really easy, and I knew that the back side was going to mirror or be really close to what the front side was. So I wasn't trying necessarily to go around in a circle. At first I thought I would make it more random around the edges of the leaf there. It kind of ended up going in a circle, but I was fine with it. It was fine. It was more I just wanted to play around with the idea of what if I took a larger transparent page. I wanted the main leaf that I wrote on to be the center, and then I did want to have some embellishment. So another fun way to try kind of playing around with your embellishments that you have, and especially if you want to be using your stuff, sometimes it's a nice reminder that you can use a lot of it on one thing. I did replace the one card. I left one of them in there that's had thankful for this on that, mainly because I didn't want to reprint the picture all over again. So you'll see one of those there. Next up, I grabbed a 6x8 page protector, and I'm going to use that as a second insert into this spread. I had a couple cards, one from Audrey and one from Elliot, from my birthday, because November is a birthday month for me, and I wanted to save those, so I'm just slipping them directly into a pocket. Right now I'm kind of flipping through the products that were included in the Stories by the Month, different cards and considering which ones I want to use. I decided to take one of the quote cards there and cut that out into strips, and then I'm going to adhere it onto that photo of Simon sleeping on the couch. When I went back through and looked at all of my November pictures and November stories, it seemed like a lot of it was just people being cozy. There was a lot of that happening in November. And then we also, decorated for Christmas really early this year by my own choice. And I was happy that we did that. So you'll see Christmassy sorts of things in my 3x3 images there. And then in that enlargement as well. Remember, this was that kind of a weird year or 2019 was kind of a weird year where there wasn't very much time between the end of November and the beginning of December. Like normally there was a little more time. Thanksgiving was simply later this year. So I went ahead and cut all of that out, and then I decided to just go ahead and adhere it directly onto the photo. So just a nice quote about gratitude, lots of things related to that, especially in November. As many of you guys know, I like to include stories of gratitude regularly in my projects, but obviously November is, and October too, for those of you that are in Canada, is a time when gratitude really comes to the surface with the Thanksgiving holiday. So I added that on there, and then I wanted to use one of these wood veneer hearts that was also part of that November Stories by the Month kit. So I took that Thankful for This stamp and did repeat stamping with that using Stays On onto the wood veneer. So that's an easy way to add a little bit of an embellishment, or add your own pattern, I would say, onto an embellishment. Just a simple and easy way to do that. I thought it was really cute how it turned out. I really like that with the script font too. I don't always have script text fonts or script based stamps. But I really like how that one turned out. So that got added on there. And then I, in a second here, we'll slip that back into the pocket. So in terms of journaling, I've got that 1 3x4 card. You're going to see me write on there in a minute. That family pleather circle was from, I believe, the Family Story Kit earlier this year, and I had one of those left over. So I took one journal card and just wrote really briefly, like, November looked like it was cozy. I wrote about where we spent Thanksgiving at Aaron's family in Portland. I said that it was my birthday month. Just really high level, basic kinds of stuff. So this was not a month where I was telling longer stories or going in more detail, and I'm totally fine with that. Many of you guys who have taken my Project Life workshop, Storytime with Project Life, or other workshops have heard me talk about the sum of all the parts, right? The sum of all of these parts, when that comes together, that's where the magic is. So you don't have to do heavy journaling every single month, as long as you are including it sometimes. I want to have a balance between longer stories and shorter stories in my projects, and so that's just something to think about, and I want to encourage you in that arena as well. I actually grabbed my phone and went back on Instagram to kind of see, am I missing a story? Like, is there something big that happened in November that I'm totally missing as I was journaling on this card? And I definitely use Instagram in that way to review and to hold stories and save stories in a way that helps me when I get to this point in the process, especially when I'm doing things months later, right? Like I'm not doing this in November. So it's a different kind of memory keeping when you're doing it after the fact than if you're doing it in the moment. And it's not, I don't even necessarily think one is better than the other one. I think that they're just different, and that's okay as well. So then I needed to figure out what I wanted to do on the back side of that insert there. And I took one of the quote cards there from that November Stories by the Month kit. It says, "Joy is the simplest form of gratitude." I put that in there. I'm going to go ahead. I punched out, that's a 1 1/4 inch circle punch. And that gives me a little bit of a border around the family pleather piece there, which was just fine. If it would have been exactly the same size, that would have been just fine too. I didn't really care one way or the other, and I just grabbed whichever circle punch I was there first. So I also took another one of those hearts, so adding on another of the wood veneer on the back of that card there, and then slipping that in, and then I just used a tiny attacher to staple that in place. I thought when I was stapling it that I was getting it a little bit farther down onto there, but then you can see it kind of moves around, and it's not exactly where I wanted it to be, but it's just fine. It'll keep it in place, which was my main goal there. So I've got the initial insert with the leaf, and then I have the second insert with the 6x8. I wanted to trim down this card from Elliot just a little bit, so I cut off a little bit of the edge. I looked on the inside, and his writing was really close to the one edge, but I wanted to be able to tuck that back in there a little bit. And I did add a cute little Tim Holtz paper clip in there just as another way to kind of hold it in place for this story. Slipping that back into the large 9x12. The fact that I have that large 9x12 there means that I will start with an enlarged 9x12 for December. That's going to be next up for me in terms of my workflow here. And then I'll be done with 2019, which I've really loved doing it monthly this year. Even if I'm catching up on the last 2 months, it definitely feels good to have a project that has a beginning and an end and one that was completed. For my last little journaling card there, I grabbed the thankful for this day. I think thankful for this is what it says. Journal card there, and I'm just filling that in based on what I'm seeing in the photos that I already printed out. So thankful for our trampoline, thankful for decorating early. I think I said thankful for sleepovers. For some reason, we had a lot of sleepovers that month, it seemed like. And then also thankful Simon got to go to DC with Chris and Tiffany last month, and that was really, or in November as well. And so that was a really cool adventure for him. So there is a photo of him there as well. But again, just writing directly onto the journal card. And I think that especially when you're going back, this is a great way to just add in a little bit of the story, especially when you don't remember everything, but you can use your photos as a jumping off point to support the stories that you want to tell when you're going back in time. So I don't know how I'm tackling December yet. That's what I'm going to work on next here, and hopefully share that with you within the next week or so. I've got some other projects on my list too. I am going to be able to fit this all in one album. If I had more, like if it's close, and I did order another one just to have another one in case I wanted to do two for this one, but I don't think there's actually enough to really have two. It's full, but not over full, I guess is what I would say. So that makes me happy too, to be able to do the full year in one album. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments below.